This webinar will be a bit different from most of the webinars we've been used for, like talking about some technicalities. So I will take you through a journey on how we have come up with a business approach to have a successful deployment for DevOps in our digital transformation journey. So starting with what is DevOps as a high-level definition. So DevOps is not just about interdependent communication. It's rather than about building the culture and providing value to an organization. So DevOps will represent an organizational culture aimed to delivering business value quickly. When bringing the concept of DevOps to organizations, we have come up with an approach which is a 6 phases approach. The first phase is setting the stage, where we define what is not DevOps initially, and we explore the CAMS methodology that we follow and discuss more or less the impact of changes, because DevOps is a change by itself. Then we move to the second phase, where we talk about quantifying success and defining the different KPIs. The third phase, defining responsibilities, which is very important to differentiate who is responsible for what. And then we move to how we can improve communication, how we can educate and keep this communication continuous. And then the fifth phase is about improving visibility. Visibility, which is divided into technical and business, and we will discover the 3 C's during the webinar. The sixth phase, which is improving culture, where we will discuss what's empathy and how you can build trust. So when bringing the concept of DevOps, where decision makers are not really sure of what DevOps really is or the value it brings or provides, I tend to start from the opposite end of the information spectrum and try to educate on what DevOps is not. So this approach will help to clear up some of the reductive ideas that many people have about DevOps. So here is something I've always heard. We are doing DevOps by using a configuration management tool. DevOps is not a product or a suite of products. So DevOps is a philosophy, it's an approach, it's a method. It's not a product. You cannot buy DevOps just to say that you have it. No matter how many companies are trying to sell you a complete DevOps solution, DevOps is an entire culture that must be adopted and embraced by the entire organization. So now another statement that we hear. By using agile techniques for automation in the cloud, we have successfully achieved DevOps. DevOps is not interchangeable with other industry buzzwords. So DevOps is not a synonym for other industry terms like agile, cloud, or automation. Even though certain elements of these practices and tools do intersect, you cannot equate them to one another. So now this is also another concept I've heard. We have created a new DevOps team to make communication between our dev and ops more effective. DevOps is not a separate team. One of the goals of DevOps culture is to help eliminate siloed structures, improve communication between development and operational groups, and cross-educate those groups, make them more efficient and effective. So creating a new siloed group does not contribute to any of those goals. Moving on, some people would say, we have given our developers pagers and made them responsible for operations. DevOps is not a staff consolidation technique. DevOps is not a method to reduce staff and stack cross-department responsibilities on remaining people. It logically expands the area of responsibility for each group and defines the processes for all technology groups to work efficiently together. As an example, it extends developers' responsibility for success of the application after deploying it to production, both reducing the load on operation team and providing a subject matter expertise in production troubleshooting. So how many times you heard the DevOps model is not mature yet, we'll give it a few more years. So DevOps is not new. Both engineers and organizations have been applying DevOps practices for years prior to when the term was coined. Companies that understand the need of cross-department collaboration successfully streamed execution and increased the success rates in time to market and quality of products. So the tool set that is most commonly associated with DevOps related concepts are derivatives of what were used well more than a decade ago. So, and lastly, we also heard people saying, we finished our reorganization. Now IT consists of DevOps, QA, security, database, and networking groups. DevOps is not just about development and operation. DevOps is, in a certain sense, a misnomer. So, initially intended as a method to improve efficiency between development and operations group, the concept has logically expanded to cover other technology units as well. And with the end goal being optimization of service delivery for organizations, the more successful companies have begun to span principles beyond technology groups, including marketing, finance, HR, and other non technical business units. So DevOps is about a culture, a set of processes and practices that optimize service delivery for organizations. So the other often discussed concepts such as automation, tooling, and staff responsibility should be tactical implementations for the overall digital transformation strategy. So in this first phase, which is setting the stage, many companies and decision makers do not fully understand what DevOps bring to the organization. And because of that, they don't understand where the changes need to be made truly and make a positive impact. So they are looking for some silver bullet solution or product that does not exist. So we use a specific set of DevOps values as the framework for defining the term CAMS. So this acronym identifies the major areas of potential improvement for organizations: culture, automation, measurement, and sharing. So culture. So remember that you are not picking tools or implementation as an isolated processes. DevOps is about a culture shift to promote collaboration and empathy both within and across diverse business units. Automation. Focus on removing manual steps from your value chain where appropriate. Keep an eye towards the end goal of improving the time from inception to delivery to customer. Much like performance and security, threat measurement should not be merely a feature or an afterthought. So, but a core requirement for each component in your delivery model. Keep in mind that you cannot improve what you cannot measure. Sharing, it's creating a robust feedback loop in key to successful continuous improvement model, and being transparent with the information made available, whether success or failure, they are both alike, will contribute to culture of collaboration and empathy. So we're still at the first phase, setting the stage. We defined what's not DevOps. We talked about the CAMS methodology, but it goes without saying that DevOps will bring change, and it's critical to really understand the impact of change and then embrace it. So change is crucial to long-term organizational success, yet it is often met with resistance by individuals. There are a number of common reasons for resistance to change that tend to fall into three main categories. So you should address each of these reasons as part of a buy-in acquisition from all groups. So the first category is complacency. So which is often a problem in organizations and individuals with history of success without any recent reliance on innovation. So as this saying goes, if it's ain't broke, don't fix it. So, as one good example, many traditional retail businesses they either passed on or delayed the strong push from many organization leaders to shift the priorities to online venues. On an individual level, not keeping current with your industry can make your skills quickly outdated and have a negative impact on any solution you propose based on the then current knowledge. So remember, continuity when you aren't going anywhere is stagnation. So the second category is addressing personal impact. So fear for job stability is perhaps the most common reason that contributes to resistance to change on individual level. Some people are worried about stepping out of their comfort zone, either technically or socially, or even hesitant to change their routines. So others feel that they won't be able to make the transition very well, either because the change may force them out of the job, or if they don't pick up new skills, or due to automating themselves out of a job. So a frequent concern during a DevOps transformation is the personal impact. The third category is lack of trust. Trust is a key factor in getting a cross departmental buy in for change. If management doesn't believe IT can successfully manage change, they will be skeptical of any innovations that require their buy in. Similarly, if organizations continuously reject grassroots innovation, it disincentivizes engineers from providing value through change. Not trusting that change will create strong resistance. So those three categories essentially boil down to an aversion to change due to risk and money factors. Though those concerns can be valid, they are often driven by a fear of the unknown, which is amplified by the lack of understanding of reasons for change. And the lack of understanding stems from a lack of clear communication. So there are three key steps to embrace the impact of change. Address personal concerns. So consider each audience where you are presenting to executives, you should focus on the impact of change to improve organizational goals. But when you are trying to get a buy in from the people in your group, you need to consider their individual concerns. When presented with a change to their routine, people's first reaction is usually, what does it mean for me? So address that question first. Discuss how individual job description will change. Outline a plan of action to train people if needed. Talk through group structure changes. And perhaps most important, address any potential personnel changes head on. And then be transparent. So explicitly tell people what's going on. Given incomplete information, people will speculate and make assumptions, forming a resistance to change before the change is even communicated or understood. Even if you don't possess all the details, update the people involved and acknowledge that information will be made available as soon as it is available. So, involve affected groups. So involve the people in conversations who will be affected by the proposed change about the purpose and the effects of change, and involve them early and often. So get them excited about the change by focusing on how the change will improve the business, which will benefit everyone at the organization. It's less likely for individuals to oppose to change when they are part of the decision, let alone if they feel there is a personal connection or benefit associated with it. So now, after you have secured buy-in for the overall strategy, you can begin focusing on defining individual implementation tactics with an eye out for the strategic outcomes. So, as part of this exercise, you should define goals and outcomes that would signal incremental success of change in your group. And this moves us to the next phase, which is quantifying success. So, a key thing to remember is that although organizational and departmental goals tend to look vastly different on the surface, departmental goals are intended to support the overall organizational goals, and the two must therefore be closely aligned. So let's take an example. A board would mandate to lower the OPEX across an organization. Such a mandate might, for instance, result in a directive for IT to look for cloud alternatives in order to lower the monthly hosting and operational costs. However, departmental directives need to be presented in a context of organizational goal in order to offer perspective and avoid incorrect execution. Otherwise, the operation team might decide to switch their architecture to another cloud, but without explicit instruction to lower cost, they could re-engineer the same architecture with a similar monthly spend. And to make matter even worse, there is not only an additional labor cost investment associated with that move, but also an increase in error frequency associated with a new architecture. So making this initiative a costly exercise. In the end, IT has met the departmental goal. It has successfully switched to a different cloud platform, but it completely missed organizational target, which was lowering the operational expenses. So to line up everyone's objectives, you need to clearly define the success of all the departmental initiatives by tying the goals back to organizational KPIs. So the DevOps community has adopted the terms output and outcome to define the difference. So output is what is traditionally expected to be delivered. So be it a code or a product or a plan. Outcome, on the other hand, is the value that outputs provide. So better user experience, revenue increase, improved quality. Even though individual department initiatives will still produce outputs, the quantitative goals should be outcomes that benefit the organization and its customers. So in any DevOps implementation, teams need to understand the value of change. This premise assumes that every change, whether large or small, carries a certain value. The value can be either positive or negative. In context of a company, every change made by any of its employees has a quantifiable impact of the organizational bottom line. So again, that impact can be positive or negative. So to claim success as a result of a change, you need to illustrate a net positive value of that change. So many organizations may make some complex decisions consistently with arguably demonstrable success, right? So these companies approach their decisions from organization and need perspective, developing strategies that are projected to yield the highest return on investment value. So with multiple sources such as historical data or even multi-channel metrics and physical projections contribute to every decision that go into the calculation of projected value of proposed change for any organization. So undergoing DevOps transformation is no different. To demonstrate the positive ROI of the initiative for your organization, you should define, collect, and eventually present tangible metrics. So we can divide these metrics into two broad categories: those that measure delivery speed and those that measure quality. So perhaps the biggest advertised benefit of DevOps, as you might all have heard or seen, is the promise of speed. So from the removal of the proverbial wall of confusion between departments to the frequency of deployments to the idea of continuous code delivery, speed is a central theme when discussing DevOps goals. So measuring speed improvement would be a logical stat to benchmark as part of your initiative. So there are two major areas you should consider when defining measurable goals for speed: time from inception to market and time from commit to deploy. So the time from inception to market, I've heard DevOps defined as delivery of application changes at the speed of the business. In non-technical terms, this refers to the time from inception to market, a metric of great value that represents the velocity of your innovation cycle and correlates directly to ROI. So let's take an example of a video game industry. So there is a popular trend in online games. They release periodic expansions or what they call downloadable content, DLCs. So providing players with new content and game experiences at a modest price point. So let's example a company that releases new content every 6 months. What happens? So with every DLC release, the game developer not only earns revenue from active players, but the new content also attracts gamers who have moved on to another game. So, speaking financially, the company would experience revenue spikes every 6 months, tailing off rapidly over the next few weeks after the release, just to be repeated in 6 months when a new release is pushed out. So following a based premise that adopting key DevOps principle can accelerate delivery, shortening the DLC development cycle to only 5 months versus the initial 6 months would project a 17% increase in revenue, a number that could buy a lot of goodwill within the organization. So time from commit to deploy. A common metric is the word of software development is like time from commit to deploy, or the time interval between completing development to making the change available to customers. So like most DevOps related improvements, this one can be applied to any inefficient process, so technical or not technical. So to frame the concept in non-software terms, it's the efficiency of the deployment pipeline. Or to put it even more simply, what does it take to put a finished product in front of your customer? So time is a critical metric of DevOps adoption. Yet people often make the mistake of constraining speed improvements to software development cycles without considering the end goal. The speed of generating technical output becomes much less important if it doesn't result in business outcome or value. So, in the world of business, speed equates to process agility, which is applicable to any organizational process, not just processes within the software development lifecycle. So, identifying the processes that require the most improvement is the primary job of a DevOps leader focusing on the largest return on investment areas. When reviewing the organizational delivery pipeline, you should pay attention to processes that can benefit from injection of DevOps principles. Value stream mapping can help you to collect and analyze data about the efficiency of individual steps and their value contribution to overall business outcomes. So a value stream map will illustrate your process from idea inception to delivery to customers. It provides you with visibility into the current state of your processes and can help to identify delays, blockers, and inefficiencies in your workflow. So keep in mind that value streams should involve multiple groups within your organization, not just IT. So make sure to include members from appropriate teams in the evaluation. So as mentioned, like delivery velocity represents one important set of metrics for measuring the success of DevOps adoption. Quality is another important set. So often when speed is positioned as a primary focus of DevOps initiatives, quality suffers due to conflicting early goals. Yet quality is one of the key components that should be measured and calculated into a net value gain to validate the success of your DevOps initiative. So the significance of quality is widely acknowledged, yet specific metrics remain a question. Much like speed, quality should be a quantifiable measure against which an organization can measure its financial success. However, unlike the measure of velocity, the value calculation should be done from a standpoint of cost reduction rather than revenue gain. Defects is delivered, defect rates. So this is one quality metric. So defects in a delivered product or service can be correlated directly to the gross cost of that product. In a traditional scheduled software release development model, a large focus is often placed on testing in order to reduce a heavy remedy cost incurred from potential defects. Change failure rate. As we were talking about business agility, we discussed that one of the main goals of DevOps is to increase the speed of delivery. So, needless to say, to truly maximize the value from speed gains, the failure rate should be low. Otherwise, you are just increasing the velocity of failure. So, bringing a negative overhead to the projected value. After all, to err is human, right? But to err 10,000 times per second is automation, and no one wants that. So we anticipate that with the addition of automated testing and delivery procedures, one should expect a decrease in the defect rate over time, especially as the team refines the process. An increasing failure rate or one that is high and does not go down over time is a good indication of problems in your processes. The third KPI for quality measurement is mean time to recovery. So often ignored by business groups, a mean time to recovery or MTTR is a metric that technology groups often concentrate on during DevOps adoption. So this is the time from problem occurrence to resolution of the problem. Much like change failure rate, the overall time should trend downwards over time because it represents a good measure of the team's maturity and effectiveness in handling change and responding to new challenges. So, the way to explain the need for proactive investment into MTTR reduction is to frame the question in the terms that would be appealing to the CEO. So you need to determine what monetary value downtime presents to your organization. So the question to ask if you are trying to get the buy-in, what monetary value does 1 minute of downtime carry for your business? So now moving to our third phase, once you have established strategic key performance indicators and defined measurable organizational uh, success criteria, it's time to coordinate individual responsibilities to support the effort. So, for that, you need to make a decision on how to position technology groups to best enable business outcomes. We will split responsibilities between two groups, IT and business. Tactical responsibilities, often discussed as part of the DevOps transformation, are local to technology teams. That's the IT responsibilities. So these responsibilities might include process changes to improve mean time to detection, new tool stacks to build out the delivery pipeline, or restructuring and augmenting teams with skills to support those initiatives. So, for that reason, the natural allocation of these responsibilities should fall solely on technology groups, not a major shift from well run traditional organizations. But ensuring autonomy for those decisions is key to DevOps adoption. So, the ability to make quick local changes in support of changing requirements will allow quicker response and adoption. So, thereby helping the technology landscape to change at the same pace as business dictates. Business groups must define the context for an organization's strategic vision. Context is important. It establishes a common baseline for the communication. Without it, you are creating disjoint channels for data sharing. So each with its own context. When your message is delivered in one context but received in another, it creates a set of false expectations for both parties. So without full understanding of strategic goals and without being kept in a loop when those goals shift or change, IT cannot effectively plan its support tactics and will fail to deliver value. So, one of the major breakdowns occur when high level decision makers are unable to separate strategic decisions from tactical decisions. So, let's example some real directive that would be given by non technical executives and leaders to technical teams for execution. Okay, so this is some bad example. We need to move to AWS cloud. So this example illustrates a very poor strategy communication. It doesn't frame a problem that needs to be solved or an outcome that needs to be reached. Instead, it attempts to define a solution that needs to be implemented. So, purchasing a particular tool or switching a platform is not a goal. It's a means to achieve a goal that has not been communicated. So, requirements like these raise more questions than they answer. So, why a particular product, not another? What is everything? And perhaps the most important question, what is the goal we are trying to accomplish by these changes? And those are left unanswered. So a better way would be we need to scale our application better. This requirement is formulated a little better in the sense that they move one step up from tool selection, but they still leave a lot to be desired. So they still provide solutions instead of defining problems. So do we need to scale horizontally or vertically? Do we really need to scale, or is performance a problem we are looking to solve? And if we do need to scale, what are the metrics for projected growth? Ultimately, the same question, what is the problem we are trying to solve, is not answered. Instead, a solution is requested without defining an actual problem or goal. So the best strategic direction would be we need to reduce our operational expenses by 20% and prepare for 10 times growth over the next year. This statement is an example of what properly formulated strategic goals look like. The desired organizational metric that needs to be improved is clearly communicated, and the means to accomplish the goal is left for local decision makers, allowing them to define local KPIs in support of the strategic goal. Because IT KPIs need to support specific objectives or initiatives originating in one of the non-technical groups, those objectives, along with changes to them, need to be clearly communicated down to supporting groups. And that information needs to be complete and timely. That's where we talk about transparency as part of the business group responsibility. And transparency include information completeness and information timeliness. So it's not enough just to share information. It should be complete and right on time. So one of the common landmines in communication is the assumption that a piece of information often outside the receiver's domain is not important to context. So contractual requirements and business operation compliance are good examples of domains that are often kept away from IT. So suppose that as part of improving the delivery pipeline for managed customers, you plan a move to move your version control to Git to simplify your continuous integration. So in choosing a tool, GitHub seemed like an obvious choice. Not only is your team already familiar with the tool, but the SaaS nature of GitHub offers the lowest cost adoption and a no-brainer, right? But what if you knew that each customer's contract contained a standard legacy clause stating that no part of their code or data can leave your network? This piece of information, seemingly unrelated to initiatives at hand, would immediately put a restriction on tool choice and eliminate the SaaS options at selection process. So, and then this information should be timely. So perhaps the most common example is a marketing group notifying the operation group about a projected surge of traffic to the website. So from a PR perspective, being featured on the front page of a major news site is a big success. So from a technology perspective, it's a disaster that pushes the system over the projected capacity and causing a poor user experience and even forcing the entire team into firefighting mode in order to accommodate the traffic spikes. So such issues can be avoided with adequate advanced notice, allowing some time to prepare to scale with the search. So moving to phase 4, improving communication. So in a DevOps-centric organization, communication and collaboration are the fundamentals for success. So when an organization focuses on agility, the transfer of accurate and complete information must match the pace of delivery, which in turn increases value delivered. So um, however, many organizations do not invest enough into improving communication. For example, the PMI reported that on average, 40% of all projects that do not meet their original goals and business intent do not succeed due to the ineffective communication. So how we can overcome this? By education. Some concepts that are accepted as common sense to one group can be completely foreign and counterintuitive to another, which can cause friction between groups. Without proper context, even the best ideas can be viewed as not applicable to people in other groups. So, furthermore, improvement decisions made based on incomplete or missing context can be harmful to desired outcomes. It's important that you make an effort to share domain knowledge that will help to align goals for different groups and provide the context needed for supporting decision. Everyone is master in their own silo and a novice in others. By breaking down knowledge silos and sharing expertise and knowledge, you can create an organization of experts with familiarity in other operational areas, helping to make the optimal decision based on the most complete information available. In improving communication, we need to focus on a continuous communication, which should happen across, not before, not during, not after. It should be before, during, and after the delivery cycle across the whole period of time. So to maximize the value from DevOps principle, you must integrate and optimize business feedback loops at every stage of your delivery and management process. So before the start, perhaps the most common point where intersection between technical and non-technical groups is the requirement gathering stage of the process. The important thing to remember, however, is that the first step in requirements definition is to define business requirements. And this is what's often neglected during the process. Engineers have a tendency to start thinking about the solution before fully understanding the problem. They often think their job is to develop software, but really is just the means to an end. So to align the focus, engineers must understand the target objectives and no less important, the reasons behind the requirements. So during the delivery cycle, one of the key premises of DevOps is continuous delivery. So the approach helps deliver value more quickly by allowing for smaller incremental changes. More features reach consumers faster. More behavior data is collected, and as a result, the rate of change for business needs increases. If your team releases features whose real time analytics inform future business decisions daily, and your only chance to discuss the potential changes with business groups is at the end of a 2 week sprint, your feedback loop is too long. So when requirements change to reflect new business needs, there is a high likelihood that a change is supporting technical plans and operations will be required. So waiting to share the information until the next scheduled checkpoint can result in a missed opportunity to capitalize on hot data, or worse, cause the supporting team to be unprepared for change. And after the delivery cycle, a retrospective is a periodic team review or a review of an event such as an outage or a near miss or a missed delivery goal with an actionable outcome for future improvement. Retrospectives offer a great venue for understanding the impact of change, whether expected or unexpected, educating the team and maximizing the forward value. The fifth phase of our framework is improving visibility. Monitoring has traditionally been a function of IT, focusing on system health. But however, the health of system is not valuable as a standalone measure. For organizations that rely on technology for their business success, monitoring efforts that are isolated to technical symptoms are at high risk for continuous failures. Focusing on metrics related to business success is vital for teams responsible for the health of the supporting system. So, the operations group needs to have access to business metrics of success in order to have a holistic view of the business health and to be able to properly detect, diagnose, remedy, and potentially predict business disrupting issues. So, when working on improving visibility into different aspects of an organization's performance, the 3C's approach should inform the process: collect, collaborate, and correlate. So, collect data from all the sources, technical and non technical, collaborate on data quality and relevance with different groups, correlate different data points for a holistic view. So traditionally, teams will collect data that is critical to understanding progress for local KPIs. As shown on the slide, periodically, the pieces of information are shared in support of a particular conversation, but continuous visibility of data is limited to a group with the perceived benefit of having it. So the operations group sees the metrics showing the health of the system. Developers are interested in application performance statistics. Business groups focus on their own KPIs. So this means that every group is making their decision based on a different data set. So the separation of data availability can provide a false sense of normality at different parts of the responsibility chain. So the last phase of our approach is improving culture. DevOps fosters a culture of continuous learning and improvement. The most non-concrete concept that's often associated with DevOps is empathy. All people are different. They have different backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences. To make matter even more complicated, those individuals' experiences and points of view can change over time. Yet, to maximize the organizational value, individuals with different backgrounds, titles, goals must effectively collaborate and work towards shared goals. So, empathy, in essence, is the ability to relate to other people and willingness to see things from the point of view of another person. There are a number of reasons why empathizing with others is important in context of DevOps. Better appreciation for the challenges that cross-departmental groups and teammates faces, a deeper understanding of motivation and context for decisions, and less cross-departmental conflicts due to lack of understanding and continuous insights into other parts of organization. Building trust is also part of your culture improvement. So every group involved in the delivery of organization value needs to be included as part of a cultural shift. So follow these steps trying to create a culture of trust. Identify trust gaps, understand causes of distrust, show value by identifying with the group's objectives, be open about goals, and create information transparency. So, the best way to build empathy and trust is to get people working together toward common goals and solving problems together. Look for opportunities to bring people together across groups in brainstorming, in retrospectives, and in celebrations. Again, without a culture of mutual respect and collaboration, most improvement initiatives would fall flat. DevOps is about people, not tools. So at the end, those are our takeaways. So use the following recommendations as a guideline to map out an adoption strategy that best fits your situation. Embrace organizational goals, understand motivation and incentives for different groups, eliminate blame, concentrate on techniques that enable the other group, encourage open and frequent communication, measure everything, make data-driven decisions, use contextual correlation, approach change as a series of small improvements, celebrate your success. Remember, as a DevOps leader, your job is not to provide the best technical solution and optimize the output of your team, but to enable your organization to thrive. Thank you so much for attending.